302 links don't lose PageRank. Yahoo sells up. And how can local marketers take advantage of Pokemon Go? All this and more in This Week in Organic, episode number 47.
This week's in Organic. Live from London on thisweekinorganic.com.
Broadcasting live on the authoritas.com blog, you're watching This Week in Organic, the weekly show that debates the ramifications of the latest SEO and content marketing news. Sign up to watch the next show live at thisweekinorganic.com. Hello and welcome, I'm David Bain, and each show I'll be joined by some knowledgeable, opinionated folks to discuss the latest happenings in anything that impacts organic traffic. And as for you in the live audience, get involved. So there's a good comment section underneath the video. Hopefully we'll get a bit of interaction there. If not, there's always the replay, of course. We're on iTunes. We're also on the authoritas.com blog as well. But let's find out more about today's guests, where they're from, and what has caught their attention this week. So starting off with Aleda.
Hello, how are you? It's amazing.
Great, thanks.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm so happy to be here. And definitely, like the one thing that I have taken my attention this week has been the Yahoo deal. Definitely, I think it's something that we all had been expecting in one way or another. Sadly, but there was a quite fun and funny meme going on, and that I just shared in Twitter like an hour ago, like with a few timelines, like the timeline of Yahoo, right? Like when they control everything and they decided to not buy Google, to pass on this deal, pass on this other deal, and now they are being sold like, I don't know, maybe 1% of the value that they had like 10 years ago is yeah, for me it's a little bit rough. It's a sad time for sure.
Yes, it is. It is a bit sad, and also, I mean, they've been losing money the last quarter. I think it was about $300 million, wasn't it, that they lost, which a business obviously can't keep on going. But it is a sad time. Those of us who have been around a little bit longer in the internet era remember Yahoo is one of the first websites to actually go on to find information. So I guess it's the changing of a lot of things going on online at the moment. But it'll be good to talk about that later on. But let's find out a little bit about who else is joining us. So also with us today is Andrew.
Hey David, how you doing?
Very good, thank you. Would you like to introduce yourself and actually maybe give one topic that is of particular interest to you to discuss today?
I'm Andrew Steele. I'm the head of SEO at Equator, based up in Glasgow, and I think the topic that's caught my interest, apart from obviously the Verizon purchase of Yahoo, I think the change, or the announcement rather, confirmation from Google on 301 and 302 redirects is quite an interesting one. I think, obviously we'll come on to discuss it, but I think it's something that's probably been in the planning for a wee while, and I think there's been discussion as well over whether Google had already been doing this for a wee bit before they've confirmed it. So yeah, I think that's the one that stands out for me.
Absolutely, I'm sure we'll have a lot of discussion about that. I noticed that Aleda was involved in the chat with Gary Isles as part of the announcement there, so I'm sure she'll have something to say about it as well. I'm sure everyone will have something to I'm sure Chris will have something to say about it as well. So Chris is joining us today.
Oh yes, great to be on eventually. Sort of a few failed attempts, but yeah, no, it's good. I think I'm Chris Green. I'm head of search at Strategic. The story that's kind of piqued my attention, not just because of the nostalgia value, but it's got to be this sort of Pokemon Go and the small business angle. Primarily because one of our clients has sort of been able to leverage some of that themselves. But I've in the last week or so, I've heard some really quite interesting stories of this. Taking event. So it's whether or not it will be any kind of long-term marketing associated. It's probably unlikely, to be honest. But I still think it's a really interesting story nonetheless.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly depends on your business. It's not going to be a business opportunity for everyone, but I'd be interested to hear if anyone's got an opinion if a particular sector or type of business is likely to be able to take advantage of that. Also joining us today is James.
Hey guys, yeah, James. I'm also from Strategic, and I'm sort of the creative director and work very closely with Chris. I think the sort of Verizon acquisition of Yahoo certainly caught my attention, but very similar to Chris, I'm very much looking forward to talking about Pokemon Go and the marketing opportunities arising off the back of it, just because it's such a sort of new a new thing, really. That as the article mentioned, that I was looking at that first augmented reality game and marketing opportunity. So yeah, very much looking forward to talking about all of today's topics.
Yeah, I was reading up about it a little bit today, and I was actually thinking of secondlife.com, because they perhaps even had an opportunity to do a similar kind of thing, because they built that artificial world. I remember talking about it 9 or so years ago when they were doing it, but I don't think they've evolved onto an app. So maybe Pokemon has taken the first mover advantage here. So it would certainly be interested to see what happens there, but also, I guess, what other businesses end up doing similar kind of things, and perhaps even moving the opportunity forward even more. But also with us today is Kieran.
Hi, David.
Hello, Kieran.
Hi, sorry. I forgot the mute, as I thought I would. Yeah, so my name's Kieran. I'm essentially a freelance SEO consultant now. And one of the main things that I've been looking at and looking into this week is obviously, as mentioned before, with regards to the 301 redirects now actually passing some authority, or now them confirming that they actually pass authority, which I think it's nice to see the confirmation, and not the whole old story, which was along the lines of they don't pass any authority, but they pass all of the penalty if the site had a penalty. So yeah, definitely want to talk a bit more about that.
Right, okay, we'll be intrigued to hear if people think that's a good thing or a bad thing from an SEO perspective. Also with us today, last but not least, is Michael.
Hi, David. Thank you for joining, and thank you again for inviting me. My name is Michael Bonfils. I run a company called SEM International. I'm also a board member for Sempo. One of the things that I've been thinking about this week, which is actually really big news, I think, to everybody, is the rollout of expanded text ads in paid search. So that's definitely going to be a big game changer. Now, we knew about this, that it's happening and that it's going to be rolling out, but now it's official. I think this is really going to change things. It'll change things for organic. There's not going to be much room left on organic on the mobile sphere, so that's kind of interesting to me to see how that's going to look. Also, on an international front, this is very interesting to me because you have so many languages that are much more richer, much more detailed than ours. So this new expanded text ads will be able to accommodate to that. So just my mind is just twirling with ideas around that. So
great point, and I love your thoughts there, especially around the fact that paid will obviously impact organic, because we're talking about real estate here, and certainly on mobiles, people will have to scroll before they see any organic result if they don't do that already, and SEOs that don't pay any attention to what's happening in paid surely aren't on top of their game, because they're not seeing at first hand the impact of everything else that's happening out there and how that's going to affect what they do as well. But let's move on to topic number one, which is Gary Iles has tweeted that 301 and 302 directs links don't lose PageRank anymore. But how does this impact SEO, and does this mean that your current, say, 302 linking strategy should change? Who shall we talk to first? I think Andrew. Andrew, did you mention that this was a topic that was of particular interest to you today?
Yeah, I think it is interesting because I think whenever we think about any kind of technical auditing SEO work you might do for a client, a big part of it is always looking at kind of redirects and redirect mapping and redirect chains as well. And in the past, a lot of the kind of best practice around dealing with redirects was minimising the chains, especially because of the kind of drop-offs in the value that would get passed, or as Kieran I think was saying before about whether any value got passed as well. I think particularly for 301s, we know that value had been passed, but for 302s, it's kind of become one of those recent points of speculation where people thought that they were passing value now, and I think John Mueller had kind of come out and said this, and a lot of people had questioned whether it was actually the case or not. But you know, I think it starts changing, I guess, a bit of the weighting of time, at least, that you would put into doing a lot of these activities. If you know they pass complete value, you know, the chaining thing is something that they've not said whether that would still be an issue, and it is obviously still an issue from a user experience perspective, and you know, from an optimization for crawlers and kind of requests perspective, definitely. But I think, you know, there's a lot of kind of interesting potential for change in terms of just kind of prioritization of some of that kind of technical activity that we would typically look at around redirects.
So, Alida, I see you nodding away there.
Yeah.
What do you think that this will have on the impact of the quantity of 301s and 302s that are implemented in the future?
That's the thing. What I am afraid is, like, on one hand, okay, they have confirmed that 302 do pass value, right? But on the other hand, what we have, for example, when I do audits, and I do a lot of audits, especially also in multilingual, multinational websites, what I find is a lot of times where the logic of this redirect is not the correct ones. Yeah, so some people still mix 302, 301s in many situations, and then in those cases, yes, we might not necessarily go through the pains of, oh, change that 302 to 301, for example, because that still pass value. However, I wonder how that impacts all the type of recommendations that have been there for a while. Like, for example, for language or country selectors or global pages that were redirecting towards other geolocalized internal pages based on the IP. The recommendation that was provided by Google, like in 2014, I think, or 2013, there is a post about that, was that the redirect should be done in 200 with a 202 redirect, right? Because at the end, you don't. I mean, you want that each language or international version like stand on its own. So I wonder how that changes it all. And also, like, I remember 2 years ago they started to say, like, for mobile redirects it didn't matter 202, 201. But I in my case I still continue to recommend 201s because I like to be consistent, and if it is a setting that is not going to be changing from one month to another and is a permanent type of configuration, so let's be consistent, and if the effort is the same, if it is changing a number on the rewrite on the htaccess, so what should it matter, right? And then on the other hand, of course, it's about validating and checking and doing our own test and seeing, like, yeah, redirecting this to that makes, like, this is the final destination that end up being ranked and end up, like, it's true, the page that is redirected is passing value to the other or no. Like, it's about also validating and checking all this well. But yes, I'm definitely a little bit worried about the impact of this type of confirmation have on clients. Like, for example, with RunRain, I had the typical situation of clients asking me, like, how we are going to optimize for that, right? So in this case, I'm a little bit afraid that they are going to say, oh, we don't need to fix redirects anymore because they all pass value or something like that, you know. So it's very important for me that all of these scenarios are very well defined, very clarified, and that at the end of the day we do our own validations and we are consistent with the type of configuration and work that we want to achieve. From a crawling perspective, crawl efficiency, from a user experience also perspective, and many other reasons and goals that we may want to achieve.
I like that word validation that you're using, because obviously it could be easy to be reactive and suggest lots of things to change about an existing website based upon what appears to be a new way of treating 302, certainly. But the right thing to do is maybe step back and actually see what kind of impact it has on existing sites before recommending things for the future. Chris, what are your thoughts on this? Would you actually recommend anything based upon what we found out now, or would you simply step back and actually see how it actually impacts things as they are?
I think the sort of echo of fear there. You know, I've certainly been on that end of the perspective where, you know, you've said to a client or a developer, you need to change these redirects. It's the wrong response. You're giving the wrong signals. And they say, okay, well, why is that a big deal? And he said, because PageRank, because, you know, rankings, visibility, and etc. And that equation was a very simplistic one to show someone, because, you know, the end result was very, very clear. Whereas I still think from our perspective and looking at it now, it's a case of, what are you telling Google about that redirect? Is it permanent or is it temporary? What do you want Google to do with that then information? I mean, the flow of PageRank in that, I mean, if it's a page that you want to direct PageRank to, it's a page that you want to be ranked and be considered, then, you know, make that permanent, kind of, you know, commit to it. I think, you know, my concern in the long term would be whether or not, you know, the two redirects became almost, in a sense, the same. But I don't think that's necessarily what Google is saying. I think it's more just it seems like they're trying to help people out who aren't implementing it right. Maybe, I don't know. That's a lot of it is we have to wait and see how it changes. I think this kind of thing is notoriously difficult to test for as well. My concern would be for websites that have an overuse of 302s internally, so, you know, e-commerce sites that have lots of links that they don't want crawled and indexed, but that's kind of a crawl issue whether it passes PageRank or not. I mean, if it's still on every single page of the website, it's still excess crawl, it's still tying up valuable resource that you want elsewhere. So, you know, if you need lots of 302s, I think you probably need to check what the actual problem is rather than, you know, put a temporary fix on it. I'm not convinced that this change really will make me act any differently.
James, is this just Google getting fed up with SEOs and webmasters who aren't actually using redirects in the correct manner, and actually starting to maybe treat redirects in a similar kind of manner because there are so many people not using it in the right way?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it always surprises me to understand exactly when and how and why the guys at Google tweet about certain things and confirm or deny things. I think they are such an important part of, you know, particularly with website development, if you're launching a new website or links become orphaned and so forth. And I think it is obviously in Google's interests to encourage us to map those. But I think just kind of echoing what Chris said, it doesn't really change anything for me. It doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to sort of get any lazier about how we map redirects for our clients. We still will be just as thorough. And I think, as you know, we were saying a moment ago, I think, sorry, Andrew was saying how, you know, chaining redirects is still a poor user experience. It's still a, you know, a lazy thing, and I would always still try and just have one redirect. So I think they're probably saying it just because potentially they're just getting bored of people, you know, bombarding them out, asking them about it, because it was something that a lot of people suspected. You know, looking at it a little bit more earlier, a lot of people I still think don't believe necessarily what Gary said, and just taking it with a little bit of a pinch of salt. So yeah, I think as just Chris said, it doesn't really make a huge amount of difference for us, but just to sort of carry on being as thorough as we were before, and just, you know, if something is a permanent redirect, redirecting it. If it's temporary, keeping it temporary, and just ensuring that we do our mapping very thoroughly for our clients. You know, and Chris and I are doing a very large one at the moment, funnily enough, and it won't change what we're doing in any way, shape, or form.
Kieran, what are your thoughts on this? I mean, James said that maybe some people don't believe what Gary was saying that much, and maybe if Matt Cutts was saying it, it would be treated a little bit more seriously. I'm not sure. What are your thoughts on this one, Kieran?
I think one of the main worries is that you don't want people to become lazy, and it have that effect where people think, oh, okay, well, it's passing PageRank now, so we don't have to kind of sort out the redirects. I mean, from a usability point of view, you want people to go into the right pages, and you want the redirects in place for that, but will that have any effect if you have the redirect chains, albeit they'll pass authority? Will it actually have any effect on the way that Google ranks your website based on the fact that you've actually got a redirect chain? So from their kind of crawlability, the way that they crawl your site, then it may have some form of effect. The other kind of question it kind of threw up in my mind was, if a 302 redirect is obviously a temporary redirect, would it take longer for any authority to pass through a 302 because they think that that redirect may actually be taken down in the long run? I'm not sure. I mean, with regards to what kind of Google say on social media and in talks, I think they will have an ulterior motive as to the reason they do it, like you touched on, that maybe they want people to start sorting out the redirects. So give them that little thing of, oh yeah, they will pass authority, people will now start to actually sort them out. But yeah, I do think you do have to take it with a pinch of salt.
Michael, would Google ever have an ulterior motive about anything?
Why, no, of course not. You know, I've been thinking about this, and the key word that we mentioned in the beginning, or maybe you mentioned in the beginning, was that they just started passing through PageRank, right? So think about that. I mean, at one school of thought, you can also think, have they always passed PageRank? They just never told us, right? Then that could be a possibility. Or they're starting to pass rank now because of their new algorithm is taking over, and their new algorithm needs to pass PageRank for it to work properly. And if it's the latter, does that mean that SEOs have an opportunity to game the system like they did with cloaking back 15 years ago? So there's a lot of questions there. I mean, for me, I agree with the rest of the panel. I think 301s is the proper way. I hate that they've even made this an issue now, you know, because we all know what's going to happen. We're going to be sitting in meetings, and the IT guy is going to pull up, well, it doesn't matter, you see, and we're going to have to argue this over and over. So it's so unnecessary and so irritating. You have no idea. Well, I'm sure you have an idea. I think everybody has an idea because we all work with clients. But I don't know. This is interesting because it might be like also a signal that, you know, this rank brain or whatever algorithm they're calling it today might have some gaming opportunities to it when you think about this a little bit more. Again, I don't game systems. I'm 301 all the way, but other people might be gaming systems.
Okay, well, some wonderful thoughts there. I'm sure we could carry on for the full hour and do this one topic, but let's move on to topic number 2, which is Pokemon Go is bigger than Tinder, has more active users than Twitter, and is apparently even more engaging than Facebook. But is it just a bit of fun, or could this be a game changer for the local marketers? So let's start with Aleda for this one.
Okay. You know what? For me, it was like it just remind me how Foursquare, or why Foursquare in the first place started to become famous and started to be popular, because of the gamification. That you went to places, you checked in, you became a major. Of course, it doesn't has to do anything with augmented reality, whatever, but it was a local thing, localized, and of course it could have been like a game changer for local businesses again, but it didn't. They didn't end up like really moving or providing something that valuable or integrating with the services of local businesses at the end. And at the end, they killed the gamification when they split the apps and whatever. So now I am seeing the Pokemon Go phenomena and thinking, oh my God, again, a game that can and is driving a lot of people to some specific places just because the Pokemon happens to be there. I have seen a lot of photos of pubs and bars and cafes where it says like, oh, you need to consume to be able to enter and catch the Pokemon, or come and let's talk about Pokemon. And there was a meetup here in Madrid the other day at a park to speak about like, yeah, exchange ideas about how to chase and get the Pokemon and things like that. And there is actually a service that I have seen that some people offering rides in their motorcycles, on their bikes also, in Barcelona for 20 euros. I am going to give you, like, I'm going to take you around Barcelona to go for the Pokemons that you want. Things like that, you know, it's crazy. However, what I am wondering is, yes, are they going to be able to provide this type of services that will actually be useful and bring value and bring business, that will connect with the intention of the user and will also connect with the desired and the goal of the local businesses to acquire real clients and to incentivize like consumption in the way that sadly Foursquare in the past didn't do. And so I see like the whole hype and the opportunity there. But hopefully, and let's see if they are able to build this layer of actionability towards business and services towards business. That's the thing.
It's certainly phenomenal, the quantity of people so quickly that they've got using the service, and the amount of engagement that they're getting with people who are using it as well. There is talks, I believe, of people like McDonald's perhaps sponsoring it as locations that you can go to as well, and maybe even um, banners or adverts that you can actually place, I guess, in this world as well. One of my thoughts straight away is, surely Google actually will be kicking themselves as well that they didn't actually perhaps do something like this, because they've got the whole mapping service. So would have been so easy for them to do something like this, or at least partner up with someone like this. Andrew, is this just a bit of fun, or is this potentially serious businesses for many people?
I think it's definitely an interesting one. I think the rapid growth that it's had has been pretty remarkable. It's turning over something like 1.6 million a day, which I was amazed at when I read. I hadn't realised that it had been quite so rapid, but hold my hands up and say I was never a big Pokemon fan. I think I kind of missed that one when I was younger, but I have seen, as Aleda says, a number of kind of bars and restaurants. I think they're probably the more kind of suitable types of business for this kind of thing. Something where you can, obviously get footfall along really, and then try and generate some sort of transaction off the back of it. I think are appropriate businesses. I do know that one of our clients. AXA in the past had used Ingress, which was another Niantic Labs game, and they'd driven 600,000, I think, people to locations that where they have offices. But I think off the back of that, it's hard to tell what a business like that is able to generate from it. But certainly for kind of bars and restaurants and kind of shop and retail type locations, yeah, I can see why it might be something certainly to jump on, and the current kind of trend for it. Whether it's got long-term appeal, I don't know, because my gut feeling is with a lot of these things, it will have a huge kind of initial wave of people using it, and then there'll be a kind of element of that will kind of drop off as kind of transient users. But yeah, I think it's definitely got a value short term, at least as a marketing opportunity, with all the things like being able to set up locations as Pokestops, or setting lures. I've seen bars and kind of restaurants using these things and attracting some custom in. So you could argue that for the cost at the moment anyway of setting these things up, being able to generate a few extra customers is definitely a win in that sense.
You've got the lingo, Andrew. Have you got it installed on your phone?
I don't actually have it. I know a number of people in my team though who are avid users of it, and I've learned a lot over the last couple of weeks from them on it, definitely.
Has anyone here actually got it installed on their phones? Here we go. James has got it.
You know what? And it's so weird. It's so weird because, again, in my case, it's the same. I wasn't part of the Pokemon or Pikachu type of fan when I was a kid, right? And probably like the people who are more engaged to it are the people who, when they were kids, they were. So for me, it's just trying around, but like, I mean, why are they valued in different ways? Like, what is the purpose? Things like that, right? But I can guess like a lot of generations. There's a whole generation who are already engaged, even without playing, just because they knew the rules from the past. Yeah.
Are you still Snapchatting every day, Aleda?
I am. I try. That for me is more engaging in my case.
Chris, what are your Pokemon Go thoughts?
I think there's something to be said about it at the moment. Obviously, no one saw it coming at quite the rate. I think, when it was hinted at before the launch, there were many fans like myself who kind of saw it the first time round, and it's kind of come full circle. And that whole augmented reality part was, almost too much of a allure for people to let down. But SurveyMonkey put out some research, I think it was late last week, early this, saying that in the States we're starting to see that peak subside. We're starting to see that kind of almost, whether it's hitting critical mass or whether it's just slowing down, it's hard to tell. So I think the prospects of business will ultimately be most accurately seen when it dies down. I think a lot of people have been quite opportunistic about setting lures or applying for Pokestops or gyms or what have you nearby. I know they're not actually. I think they closed the ability to let people sort of appeal for that nearby. So because obviously businesses could jump on that. I think from a monetization perspective, for businesses, if there's still the demand there in a couple of weeks' time, then totally, for paying subscription for businesses to get Pokestops or gyms, or like the McDonald's model that's been hinted at, where it's almost like a pay per check-in or pay per visit, based in that. There's clearly something there. I think if the demand is there, once it settles down, then yeah, we'll see businesses continue to get on it. I think because us in the UK, we watched it sort of become massive in the States, and then stories of enterprising businessmen kind of reached us slightly before the official launch. So I think probably the UK were much quicker onto it, but by that point, it almost, you were daft if you weren't making use of it. So if you were a restaurant or a bar or even a sweet shop, and you didn't have a sign in the window saying Pokemon trainers wanted kind of thing, you were probably missing a trick. But I guess part of me, I'm a little conflicted about it because I loved it. I've not really played it this time around. The thought of someone traveling around Barcelona looking at their phone rather than actually looking at everything around, just as someone who doesn't get out to Barcelona very often, that I find that, I don't know, makes me a little sad. But that's quite beside the business perspective.
It's good to see a couple of people tweeting their thoughts live here. Dan Taylor, good to see the show back. 6 quality SEOs with you as well, so he's very approving of the panel on today. And Stephanie Catcher as well, a regular viewer, happy to see TWiO back today. So thank you very much, Stephanie. But James, you seem to be the only chap on the panel who is actually has got some practical experience with what we're talking about here. So with regards to that, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I've just kind of picked up on it just out of interest. I was probably just slightly too old when it originally came out in, 99? I think I was about 15 or 16. But I think when it came out, I was just curious and had to kind of play on the game. And it's that kind of quick thing you can sort of play with when you've got sort of 2 minutes. And I think what I found really interesting, it was brought to mine and Chris's attention through one of our very entrepreneurial clients that we work with. Now, here's a local business in a little sort of shopping centre in a city called Coventry near to us. And a lot of the people who were there had actually got the game by hacking it before it was actually made available. And as Chris hinted, they were almost ahead of the game a little bit. They'd got a Pokemon gym outside and a Pokestop. And what I thought was really interesting was they were working together to share the investment of getting, as Chris mentioned, these things that are called lures that people can buy that attract Pokemon to the area, and therefore all users who are playing the game can see that this lure is activated, and they then gravitate towards that area. And I think the opportunity for local marketers, what sort of Chris and I have seen and have almost been helping them with, is the entrepreneurial aspect. Those who can and should take advantage of it probably already have. What Chris and I were trying to do was then also show the media what they were doing, talking to local papers, and kind of getting it out there how they were leveraging that platform to increase footfall in their area. And I think for me there probably isn't the longevity in the game that I think people expect. Like a lot of things, as everyone was saying, it will be peaking. I think just 3 hours ago the BBC reported that the first person in the UK is claiming to have caught all of the Pokemon, but he has been playing it solid apparently since it came out at the start of the month. So I think that they've got to invest this money. I think, as Andrew said, they're taking $1.6 million per day just off the iPhone users alone, and they've got to invest that in enhancing the game, in moving it forward, and rolling out new features if they're to maintain that usage. I think if they can maintain the usage and keep the game engaging, then businesses will continue to adopt techniques to take advantage of that. And as I've also read as well that the game are looking to have these sponsored locations, where rather than sort of paying a serious amount of money to become a Pokestop, they're doing apparently a pay-per-visit model, whereby you can simply engage and become a Pokestop, and then for every person that kind of comes and spins the thing around to get free elements out of it, because the way the game works is through in-app purchases. You guys probably think I've been playing this way too much.
God.
But it really is really interesting. It's been interesting to kind of follow and keep tabs on, and it is great to see that it's almost a new medium allowing local businesses to bring footfall to their stores. So I hope it does continue, and I hope it does pave the way for a lot more augmented reality applications and sort of marketing tools as well.
Wonderful. Okay. James, or rather, let's actually move on to Kieran. Kieran, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the main things is the word hype and whether that will kind of die down. At the minute, like James said, there's people that are kind of getting close to completing the game, and if they don't kind of move it forward, then are they then going to kind of stop playing, and you're going to get people dropping off anyway? I did read, I think earlier this week, some of the ideas as to kind of monetizing it, and obviously the pay-per-visit mod way of doing it was one of them, but one of the other things that they were potentially concerned about was if, say, for instance, two or three businesses that are relatively close together both try and either get the lures or the poker stops, then they're only going to allow one of them or each of them at certain periods of time to actually pay for that lure or pay for the poker stop. So you're going to start to get the bidding against each other, the competing like you do in PPC, but without the stopping big companies from being able to come in and just essentially saturate and just pay whatever they need to get people in, the likes of McDonald's, and the poker stop or whatever they wanted to call it, which was an interesting concept. But yeah, I think one of the big things will be what comes out after this, what sort of augmented reality games come out after it, and how people can potentially jump on them, because I think the first couple that come out after will have quite a high traction based on what's come off Pokemon, but then over time, as you get more and more augmented reality, it's going to seem like the standard sort of game. So potentially jump on the hype while we can now, and then over time, it's then not going to be as interesting when they do come out already.
Stephanie Catcher, one of our viewers, is saying, watching TWiO is cutting into my Pokemon time, but you know, priorities. It's good to know you've got your priority right, yeah. And Michael, you haven't given Pokemon Go a go, have you?
You know, to be honest with you, I hate Pokemon. I hate Pokemon. No offense to any fans of Pokemon out there. If it was Smurfs, right, that just to age myself, like what Aida said, Smurfs, I'd be all over chasing Smurfs around. But Pokemon is a great way for American fat children to run around and lose weight, in my opinion. And for another reason that I am not looking forward to this Pokemon phenomena is because at trade shows we're going to get Pokemon tchotchkes, and I can't stand tchotchkes, those little foamy rubber Pokemon tchotchke things, so I'm not looking forward to that. Or nor am I looking forward to when you're speaking at a conference and everybody's playing Pokemon on their phone, because I know that's going to happen. I've already seen it happen. But regardless,
are you looking forward to anything?
you know what? Regardless, I you know, even though I'm not a fan, I'm thinking about optimization, or at least SEO for Pokemon. So I came up with the first organic Pokemon optimization program right here. So basically what you do is you wait for the Google Maps car to be coming around your neighborhood, and then you just pop this sign out, stand there and smile, and you'll get obviously tons of Pokemon people to rush to your store and hopefully buy your Slurpees and everything else, right?
So for audio replay or audio replay listeners, I'm not going to say what you said in that bit of paper that you should drop to the screen there, because you should be watching the show live. So the next show you should be watching the show live. Okay, you're missing out.
Exactly. But did you see the little Pokemon on James' shoulder when he was talking? That little black Pokemon moving around on his shoulder when he. Did you notice that on the bed there?
Yeah, that's my cat. Sorry about that.
I love how that solution for marketing was the most analog digital solution I think I've ever seen.
Perfect, right? Okay, but in all reality, I think Kirsten touched on it. This is a combination of VR and augmented reality. It's fascinating. I am looking at this. I've been looking at this for months. I've been going to trade shows on augmented reality. You know, Brett Tabke, I think everybody knows Brett Tabke at PubCon. He's a huge VR augmented reality guy. So I think, you know, our world really needs to start paying attention, and I say our industry when I say our world, to to start paying attention of this combination of what is augmented reality in the future of search. What is this going to look like, and how is this going to change? Right now, I have a client who's asking me to find out ways that he could look at analytics when you use a VR handset and do search queries using your eyes and your voice. And I'm scratching my head thinking, oh my God, you know, how could a client be coming up to me with this? I should be the one that should be thinking about this now. So, you know, there's a lot of game changers here. This is just the start of it. I mean, my recommendation is, you know, Pokemon, great, go for it if you want to market it there, but also look at the new technologies and everything else that's coming out. I think there's a lot of hidden opportunities and just gold mine that's just going to be released over the next couple of years.
Absolutely. Don't just run with the fad. Look to see what's right for you and your business, you know, but be aware of what else is out there and make sure you you try and leverage that as well. But the discussion is going on. Time's passing, so I reckon we should move on to the next topic, which is it was a closed shop for a while, but now Twitter are opening up the ability to become a verified account. But what does becoming verified really mean, and does it really matter? I reckon the only verified account here is Aleda. Is that right?
I actually asked for the verification once that well they confirmed that they were doing it, and yes, I filled the form, which is very straightforward and short, and yes, they verified me. There's something that I can think that really helped me, which is a situation that happened like 6 months ago or so. So I have my first name handle, right, at Aleda in Twitter. So because I really registered in Twitter like early 2007, so I never, at that point, I never thought that, you know, taking like Aleda Solis, which my first and last name, right? So there's someone else who has taken Aleda Solis, and they are not using that account at all. And I know that there's people who at some point follows me there first, just to realize that there's no one tweeting there, and they, you know, start following me after. So actually, a few months ago, what I did initially was to ask Twitter if they could give me the Aleda Solis account to me, because it was my first name and last name, and they answered me at that point that I needed to prove that this was a registered trademark in order to do that. So what I did 6 months ago was to register my first and last name as a trademark here in Spain. And so when I requested now, so time passed by, I even forgotten about it and didn't do it again. And now a week ago, when this started to be enabled, the request thing, right, for the validation. So I realized, oh, I have now my trademark. So I'm not going to just send the ID, which is something that they ask to do, but send also my, you know, that I own my Aleda Solis trademark things, and I explained the whole thing. So they confirmed me like right ahead. I think because of that too, because I proved that I had issues in the past with other accounts taking my name and things like that, and then that I also was the owner of my own trademark. So I think that helped. But definitely it's good. In my case, I think it's good just because I am like showing that this is the real account that I use, and people can't stop following the other ones.
So, what are the main benefits then of becoming verified actually to operate that account? I believe that you can follow more people than people can follow you. Are there any metrics like that you're aware of that you get more of if you're a verified account holder?
I have no idea if there's like an additional benefit or limit or nothing extra that this really will give you, like from like the data that I get from there, and anything is exactly the same that I did in the past. So I am not really sure that this will benefit in any other way, that maybe give a signal of trust or authority maybe, or something like that. Yeah.
I was watching a Periscope by Joel Com, and I believe he was saying that you can follow more people and that you do more things with your account. But I wouldn't particularly want to follow more people than you can do with a free account, certainly as well. Does Andrew, does having a verified account on Twitter appeal to you?
I think for me personally, it's probably not a huge issue, but I think where it probably becomes valuable is where, for kind of people who are companies or organizations where people might be maliciously setting up kind of parody accounts or kind of spam accounts or things like that, then I could see why it would be of value. But I think when it starts becoming open to everyone, then it probably it's an individual level. If people are already following you and are seeing interaction, having interaction with you, then there's probably a bit less value to it than for individuals and kind of celebrity level or company level where it might be important. But for me personally, I think at an individual level, it's probably less of an issue. But yeah, certainly if you were having issues with people kind of creating parody accounts or spam accounts or anything like that, then yeah, I could see why it would be of value.
I'm trying to see who's on our panel. I've got a reasonable number of Twitter followers there. Michael, you've got a couple of thousand there. Is getting verified something on your radar at all?
No, not really. I mean, I always thought that was kind of no-brainer. If you should have verification just to kind of clean up the mess that's in there. But I mean, seriously, getting to it now, really? Twitter should have done this 10 years ago or 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago. I mean, this is just kind of obvious stuff, right? To clean up this mess. I just, for me, I'm kind of the alternative, ulterior motives type of guy as well, and Twitter is trying everything they can to make money, and they're failing miserably at it. So maybe an enhanced Twitter subscription model is the only way that they can make money in the future. I don't know. I'm kind of suspicious of where they're going with this, especially now. But other than that, I really don't have much to say.
Kieran, you were smiling away there. Have you got some thoughts on this? If Twitter have ulterior motives for implementing this? You're muted.
I'm not sure if they've got kind of ulterior motives. I just worry if there's any way for, as with anything digital, if there's any way to kind of game the system in getting verified and getting kind of accounts that potentially shouldn't be verified, and whether they've potentially opened it up to people to be able to kind of essentially say they're somewhere else and get verified as someone else. I'm not sure how the process itself works, but there always seems to be a way that someone can game the system. But yeah, I mean, from a company point of view, it's a good thing to have. But yeah, I do worry about the kind of the digital marketing. There's a lot of people out there that do try and kind of gain anything that they can, and whether that is physically possible, I'm not sure.
Yes, it's a bit sad, but it's certainly a concern. So if any viewers or listeners have additional thoughts about this, it'd be good to hear if you're keen to get verified on Twitter or you're not that bothered about it at all. Use the hashtag TWiO on Twitter, whether you're watching this live or recording. It would be good to hear from you. But let's move on to the final topic, which is it's the end of an era. Verizon has purchased Yahoo's assets. But what might this mean for Yahoo Search as we know it? And how might this deal eventually impact content marketing in general? So I think it was Aleda that said at the beginning that it's kind of the end of an era. So you're sad about this, are you?
Well, there was this meme like don't be like Yahoo. It's like the ultimate type of what we can learn from all this is pretty sad. I remember that I think that the first time that I searched, it was with Yahoo that I experienced a search type of experience. If it wasn't a search engine really at the time, but by being the directory and be able to access information on web through a website, it was through Yahoo, I think, before Alta Vista in my case. So it's rather sad. And well, the thing is, like, what this is going to change? I don't think that much really, because for example, they haven't been really in the search game anymore for a while, and for me, it's like, yeah, it's like, what does it mean? It's not nothing. It won't have an impact at all, because I haven't really like done anything. I don't do paid search or paid paid ads or anything that which is what they can offer right now, or they have been able to offer display advertising for a while, things like that. So it's like no game changer for me, sadly.
It
Also,
appears to
yeah.
be more significant in the States because Yahoo's the third most popular site in the States. Michael, so we'll go to Michael.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on this?
I mean, it's a good question. You know, I'm disappointed too. You know, I started back when I started in SEO in '96, in October of '96. I remember it clear as day. And prior to that, I was working in Europe on Yahoo when it was just an inter-college project, right? So my background in my career started with Yahoo. So there is like a bittersweetness because of that. So I am sad. On the other hand, it's like, oh, dude, you guys could have sold this thing for way more money to Microsoft, to Google, to so many others that could have bought it back when they had the opportunity. So it's kind of like watching a baseball or a basketball player quit when he already sucks instead of quitting when he was on top of the game. You know what I mean? So that's the kind of disappointment I feel about Yahoo. And now it's like, I mean, Verizon, so what has it become? Yellow Pages? You know? Yahoo. So, I mean, that's what I'm thinking. Verizon has a bunch of Yellow Page ad guys that can't sell anything anymore with their books. So add Yahoo to the directory again. So, you know, it's kind of a bummer, you know? So it's a really sad situation, I think, and hopefully Verizon won't destroy it like MySpace was. Not that they bought MySpace, but you know, there you go.
I mean, talking from the United Kingdom, I mean, not so many people are aware of the Verizon brand. I'm not sure if their intention is to keep the Yahoo brand or rebrand things. Has anyone heard anything about that at all?
I actually think they'll keep the Yahoo brand. Also, one thing to note for everybody else, Verizon is our biggest or second, first or second largest telecom company in the U.S. The other is AT&T. Now, AT&T for years, all of their emails of all of their AT&T subscribers had to go through Yahoo services. So Verizon buying this, I still have an AT&T account through Yahoo, and so this is a data goldmine that was worth the billions of dollars from Verizon just to get 100 million, you know, AT&T customer contact information. So for them, it's kind of a nice little cherry on top with what they purchased.
So it's not really about becoming a competitor in the technology industry today. It's just a data game, is it?
Yeah, if you've ever met somebody higher up at a telecom company, and you'd think you'd know they'd probably never be a competitor to the likes of Google or somebody else. No offense.
So what about SEO, or organic content marketing in the land of Yahoo? Does anyone participate in that at all? Andrew, James, Kieran, or do you just focus on Google? You don't have any major focus on any other search engine in the UK as well?
I guess it's interesting that Yahoo own Tumblr, do they not? Or and I think, you know, for Verizon, it's kind of tying up what they got from buying AOL either earlier in the year or last year, I think it was, in terms of like owning properties like Huffington Post and places like that are kind of interesting from a content marketing perspective. So I think it would be interesting to see what they choose to do and kind of tying all these things up. Because I know, you know, some of the stuff that I read on this has been around the things that they've got in the acquisition in terms of kind of app analytics like Flurry and things like that. So it'll be interesting to see if Verizon try and tie all these things up to create some sort of wider content marketing mix, and implementing a better tracking on that. In terms of using and targeting Yahoo as a search engine from an organic perspective, I think there's so far behind what Google have in terms of an algorithm and a market share from my perspective, certainly, that if you're doing what's best for Google, then typically you're probably doing what's already best for Yahoo. And I know that there's some things you can do in terms of putting a bit more probably a bit more of a dated focus, I guess, in terms of optimization activity that could help you with Yahoo. But I guess for what you would be doing for those, you'd probably be setting yourself back in some areas in terms of where you might rank in Google. So it's not been a huge area of organic focus. And it's obviously still had paid advertising activity taking place there as well. But from an organic perspective, I think Yahoo's been quite far behind, certainly in the UK, as you said before, for some time. That typically, most of where the focus for optimization and kind of tracking the performance in there, and any kind of significant algorithmic changes and the impacts on that. The focus in the UK is largely kind of Google and Bing, and even for international clients, I think Yahoo's a very small part of what we would do, certainly.
Yeah,
It's not to say, obviously you would neglect it entirely, but it is a small part of targeting, obviously.
I'm assuming that Chris, James, and Kieran doesn't have anything to add with regards to content marketing opportunities using Yahoo.
I think if their sort of gambit into becoming sort of a much larger player in the publishing space would have been probably more successful. Well, I think that's probably a big hypothetical. If they'd have been more successful there, then they probably would have sold for a lot more money. But that possibly some space. I think from that side of things, you've got a lot of ad media opportunities, places to be seen on the network. I mean, I think that probably the best content marketing opportunity for those quick to it now is, I don't know, some really cool interactive timeline of the rise and fall of Yahoo. I think that's probably the most that you'd be worried about from here on, really. Sorry to say.
See the infographics coming.
Well, they're already about. You're too late, but.
Okay, I reckon that just about takes us to the end of this week's show. So just time for a single takeaway and some sharing of find out more details from our guests. So if you can just have a little think about what we've been discussing, and perhaps actually one takeaway that you think has been particularly insightful yourself that is worthwhile our listeners just having a bit more of a thought over to see if they can do something with that in their own businesses. So let's start off with Aleda. Thanks for joining us, and what are your final thoughts on today?
Oh, well, thank you for the opportunity. It was really fun to be able to share the nuances. For me, one thought will be we see here how there are different things happening for sure, and not necessarily quite necessarily related to SEO. The only thing really that we discussed that might really affect directly SEO is what we discussed regarding the redirect treatment. However, there are many other activities and novelties and releases that for sure can be taken into consideration to identify opportunities. So for me, it will be the value that this can bring. For example, for geolocalized businesses or local businesses with Pokemon Go, right? To identify opportunities and to take them into consideration for the strategies of our clients. For me, there's a huge opportunity here, and so it's opening our eyes, not only focusing on what's happening purely in SEO, but any other aspect or launchings and novelties in online and marketing in general.
So if you're just sitting there in an SEO box and you're not doing anything else in the digital world, then get out of the box and actually learn one or two other things as well, so you can interact with other people in the digital world.
Indeed.
Okay, and where can people get hold of you, Aleda?
Well, actually I am a very heavy user of Twitter. Of that, hopefully it doesn't die as Yahoo or whatever other like Foursquare. It's sad, but we have discussed about many of these quite nice tools that at some point really deliver a lot of value and sadly had died. Hopefully Twitter doesn't go for that road because I really enjoy it. It's an amazing tool. So I am always reachable through Twitter. I really enjoy interacting through Twitter or Snapchat. I have become more and more active in Snapchat. Aleida Solis, I am in Snapchat, so you can also interact with me through there. Send me some snaps.
Do that, yeah. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Also with us today was Andrew.
I think in terms of a topic area, I guess it's probably broadly applicable to a number of the things we kind of covered, but it's, I guess not jumping too heavily in a kind of knee-jerk way on things. So Pokemon Go, it's it's great, and it has great opportunity for kind of local businesses as well. But it's making sure that you're going about it in the right way and with the right aims, and rather than just kind of jumping on it and thinking you need to spend money with it as a kind of fad thing. And the same for even the 301 redirects and general kind of 300 redirects that we were talking about. And as Aleida mentioned there, it's not kind of jumping too heavily on what's been said to kind of overreact and change, but looking and seeing whether it does change some of the kind of prioritization of where you would spend time and activities there, because I think from a user experience and a crawler optimization perspective, minimizing things like redirect chains and things like that are still obviously important, but it's whether it maybe puts a bit less weight on your time that you would go to spending changing 302s to 301s if they're saying that they are actually the same thing. But I think we'd probably want to be doing a bit of testing and seeing whether that does seem to pan out to be the case. And obviously there's all kinds of challenges with testing on these things, but I think those would be the kind of main takeaways I would say. In terms of where you can reach me, at Andrew J. Steele on Twitter, or through our website, www.eqtr.com, or through LinkedIn, Andrew Steele.
Great. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Andrew. And
Thanks.
also with us today was Chris. And Chris has muted himself.
Yeah, that's it. That's my parting words. No, it was great to be on. I think for me, takeaway wise, actually, possibly not exactly to a counterpoint on Andrew, but maybe a little bit at odds with, and that's the whole, and obviously Pokemon Go possibly flash in the pan, but the enterprising that got on it quickly and made their buck out of it, I mean, that kind of spirit is, I guess, kind of what SEO was built on back in the day, sort of. I guess we're in the more nostalgic time. So it's just kind of that being ready to adopt something. But equally, if anyone in any kind of large company is going into a Monday morning meeting talking about their Pokemon Go strategy, they probably need to maybe rethink, unless they're McDonald's and are sort of baked into it. But yeah, so people can find me most likely on my Twitter. It's at chrisgreen87, or our website strategicmarketing.co.uk.
Superb. Thanks so much, Chris. And also with us today was James.
Yes, thanks for having me, David. Great as always to talk with everybody on the panel. I think, yeah, the topics that we've discussed this week just show just how much things change in our industry and what we do and how exciting it is, and it's why I enjoy it. I think talking about Pokemon has been a lot of fun, and just to echo what Chris was saying, yeah, a little bit of a flash in the pan, and I think those that have taken advantage of it probably already have, and if Pokemon can keep their momentum going and keep the game fun and exciting, then it may stay around for a lot longer and be part of our activities with our local clients. But I think really the key thing for me, the key takeaway would be the news on 301 and 302 links now passing PageRank. I think from my perspective, whilst this is obviously a positive, it wouldn't change anything that I'm doing. I think 301s and 302s need to be done accurately, correctly, and thoroughly, and the news doesn't really change that sort of instance for me. If anyone wants to find me, best way is probably on Twitter. My username, which I'll just post in now, is simply Bavington, Bavington, which is my surname. Thanks, Al.
Wonderful. Okay. Well, that's the private chat between us participants here on Google
Right.
Hangouts.
That's
But what I'll make sure is I leave your Twitter handle and the links in the show notes. So that'll be published in the thirdhouse.com blog. But yeah, thanks so much for joining us, James.
Thank you.
And first time TWiO participant today. Everyone else has been on before. Actually, was Kieran. Kieran, did you enjoy your day?
Yeah, it was really good, thank you, and thank you for having us on.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming on. So what would your thoughts be on a number one takeaway from what we've discussed today?
I think it does echo a lot of what the others have said as well. Obviously, with the 301 redirects, I think is a big thing. Coming from a kind of technical background, I'm normally kind of head down in a spreadsheet, so that isn't going to change with the news. And I think having a look to see over the next kind of couple of weeks to see what research gets done, what things come out about how websites have actually been affected by the change, if the change has only just happened as well. Obviously, the old conspiracy theories about what Google tell us and all that. But yeah, just kind of have a look at some of the research and potentially do our own research as well, just to see how that actually affects it. But for the time being, I'm not going to kind of change any of the technical ways that we do it. Just from a usability point of view, I think it'll work a lot better.
Great advice for our panel. Don't be too reactive. Just see how things actually pan out and impact other businesses. You don't have to do everything immediately. So yeah, thanks a lot for joining us, Kieran. And also with us today, the chap that got up earliest in the morning was Mr. Michael Bonfils.
You know, this I was telling David and the group before everybody joined this morning that I actually dreamt from 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock that I already had this meeting. So it's nice to know that, you know, this is a deja vu that came true. But I've had plenty of coffee, as you can tell, and my sarcasm is already up to my normal standards.
Not quite to British levels, though.
No, not at all. Thank you guys very much for having me. I love being on this show. It's a lot of fun. So again, thank you. Takeaway for me, like I mentioned before, Pokemon and how quick it spread is a perfect example of opportunities that you could miss if you're not focusing on them. If you're not familiar with Alexis isn't that old tool that you use to measure site, you know, traffic. Alexis is the voice search of a product that Amazon has, or a voice product, not a voice search, but a voice product. Siri, obviously, you're familiar with. VR technologies and the movement toward VR is also all going to be powered by voice. So look into voice. Voice is real critical, and it's an open ball game there. And same with virtual and augmented. All of these things are a big deal. And to start thinking about how is this going to change my career and my business in the future. So that's that. I have one organic takeaway that I wrote for those who want to leverage Yahoo now. It says, in case it's if you can't read it, it says, if you like Pokemon, you will love Yahoo. So just put this in front of your store and wait for the Google car to come around. And then lastly, if you want to reach me, I'm on Twitter. I can't say I'm super active, but everywhere I could be reached by my name together. So Michael Bonfils, Twitter Michael Bonfils, LinkedIn Michael Bonfils, Facebook, I think I'm search engine master, but that was a long time ago. I know that sounds really dorky. But everything else is Michael Bonfils. And one last thing that I did want to say is I'm so excited to see Alita here on the panel. I just found out yesterday that her and I are going to be speaking together in Vegas on a panel. So I'm really excited about getting to know you better and being there. And if anybody in the audience or anybody in the panel here is going to be there, and I swear you can play. It's the PubCon conference in Vegas. Yeah, come on over and play Pokemon all you want. You know, while we're speaking.
Likewise, and we can play Pokemon together for sure.
Yeah, while we're speaking, for sure. Let's do it.
That will be your discussion. Yes, just well, thank you so much, Michael, and everyone. It was a great episode. It was great to have you all on. Yeah, so thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
David Bain, Head of Growth here at Authoritas.com, the data science-driven SEO and content marketing platform for agencies and enterprises. And you can also find me interviewing online marketing gurus over at digitalmarketingradio.com. Now, if you're watching this show as a recording, remember to watch the next show live. So head over to thisweekinorganic.com. You'll be directed there to see where you can watch it live for the next show. But for those of you watching live, of course, we've got the audio podcast and replays available on authoritas.com, the blog. But until we see you again, have a fantabulous week, and thank you all for joining us. Adios. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.